Hey Internet, Eric here. I'm here with my buddy Whitey from over on the Whitey the White Guy channel. And
Whitey the White Guy Show.
That's why he's here, to correct me. And Whitey the White Guy Politics. I will put the links down below in the descriptions. Watch at your own risk. I've said it in a couple videos before, but we don't know if they're going to be blocked. Long story short, I started on YouTube on Whitey's channel. He moved away. I started this channel, and now he's back.
There is no escape. And now they're keeping me captive down here in the basement.
Yep.
Which I don't mind. This is a nice basement that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever given them the tour? It's quite nice.
I've given a couple tours.
It's cold as shit, which is why I'm doing the shoulder thing.
Exactly, and that's why we're a little close together. That and we're on the little iPad.
You look massive by comparison. I'm just back a few feet.
I'm just fat. That's what it is.
We're really comparable in size.
Tonight on my show, Whitey, we are going to discuss. It's big on Netflix now. It was just released, but there have been 3 versions of this on screen. We're talking about, in my opinion.
I haven't seen the old one enough. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
We should do a compare and contrast, but for right now,
we're going to talk about, at least in my opinion, spoilers, the best version. The Punisher.
Yay!
With Thomas Jane, John Travolta, Kevin Nash, Rebecca Romijn-Stamos, some fat guy, and what the hell is his name? Ben Foster.
Ben Foster. Amazing Ben Foster. What's that guy's name? He's got a French name. Chipotle or something.
Oh, the fat guy?
Yeah.
John Panetti.
Yes.
He was a stand-up comic.
Yes.
And he's dead now.
What?
He's been dead for years. He's a fat guy. What do you expect?
What?
This came out in 2004, directed by Jonathan Hensleigh. Don't know. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I do discuss plot spoilers, specific scenes, but this has been out since 2004, so watch at your own risk. Alright. Plot is, if you've never seen The Punisher before and don't know anything about The Punisher, Thomas Jane plays Frank Castle. And is he an FBI agent? Something like that.
Yes, FBI.
And on his last tour, assignment, it results in the death of one of John Travolta's sons. John Travolta is basically just this big crime kingpin.
Yeah, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, he's the bad guy.
To go any deeper into it is kind of useless. He's the bad guy.
And the death of Travolta's son gets him to kill Frank Castle's entire family at a family reunion. Oh, Samantha Mathis is in this too. And it causes, they think Frank Castle's dead, and obviously he is not, and he gets revenge in the most hilarious way possible.
Would you say he punishes them? Sorry. I'm back.
He's a big dumb animal, folks. Yeah. All right. Now, you're not a comic book guy, are you?
Not at all. I mentioned this when we did this on my show. Mm-hmm. The only comic I ever collected was the Nam or the Nam, depending on you. And they did a Punisher crossover because the Frank Castle character, originally, as I understand it, was supposed to have served in Vietnam.
Yeah, and they just updated it as a Desert Storm.
And then this one, and there's a deleted sequence that isn't in the theatrical where they get into his time in Iraq or Afghanistan. And so the Nam had a crossover from his time in the Nam as a sniper, but that's all I know about this.
Yeah, they briefly talk about him working in special forces in this. That way you know that he knows how to use weapons. It's just like 1 or 2 lines thrown out there.
They give it just enough so you know that he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's a real badass.
We'll talk about the performances. Thomas Jane as Frank Castle. I personally really loved his performance. In a movie
he did die!
Told you.
Oh, God! He's been dead for 2 years, 4 years, 9 years. What year is it?
Right now it's 2018.
Years. April 5th, 2014. John Panetti. He died.
Told you. He plays Bumpo, the fat guy, which
Bumpo's dead.
we'll get to. Thomas Jane,
It's heartbreaking.
I really like Thomas Jane in this.
Yes.
In a
Very
movie,
well. This perfect choice.
in a comic book movie where a lot of this is over the top.
Yeah.
He could have done this one of two ways. He could have done it.
He could have been Keanu
dark
Reeves.
and brooding. Keanu Reeves. He could have been dark and brooding. He could have been over the top and goofy. He's got that perfect balance in the middle.
Yes.
You know, where he's dangerous and he's badass. You know, for the people that like the Punisher.
Without being like impervious.
Yes.
To pain. Very Bruce Willis.
Mm-hmm.
Very believable, very tough guy, but he bleeds.
Yeah.
And he feels pain and shit like that.
And what I like about him is you believe that this, you know, we'll talk about the massacre scene of his family, but after after he survived that, he's now in this apartment. He lives with, you know, Rebecca Romijn-Stamos, John Panetti.
Hot.
Yeah. She's really hot outside of, like, the blue Mystique paint. I don't know how the fuck Jerry O'Connell got her. But
he's a nice guy.
But he's the fat kid from Stand By Me.
He is.
But John Panetti and Ben Foster. But every time you see him when he's not like cleaning his guns, he's literally sitting there. The fan is blowing behind him, and he's just. This is a bottle of Wild Turkey, and
yes, he's gonna ham it.
But you believe that he's being tortured by everything that he's gone through. He's very likable in certain scenes. Whitey's new to my channel. I don't talk about scenes in sequence, so it doesn't matter.
No, yeah.
Like there is a scene where Rebecca Romijn-Stamos and Ben Foster and Panetti, we'll just call him Bumpo.
Bumpo.
They want to know who this mysterious neighbor is, so they invite him over for dinner. And Panetti and Ben Foster are trying to be goofy, and you know
somebody put Ben Foster. We need Ben Foster and like Eddie Vedder and like the 2 or 3 people we have left that are respectable
in a capsule and like
in a capsule.
A time capsule.
Put them in the fucking Pope Mobile so that they won't die or be charged with some kind of sexual molestation charges or something. It's almost for everything you watch now. It's like, wow, that guy was really great. He's
he's dead
got
now.
9 charges or he died of cancer or he's something.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck me, fucking Bumpo. So yeah, Ben Foster.
And they're having dinner, and they're trying to be nice with Frank, and
that was fuck off, by the way. Yeah, fuck your point, dumb shit. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And they're all trying to be nice and trying to get to know Frank, and he's still very sheltered. And he's just sitting there eating his mashed potatoes, but then he realizes, oh, I gotta talk to these people. I could at least say thanks and stuff like that. He's got a good chemistry with those 3.
Yeah.
Rebecca Romaine, she's not just there to be the pretty girl, the damsel in distress.
Oh, she does it so well.
She does. But there's one scene where she's like the damsel in distress, like her abusive boyfriend is yelling at her through the door, and Frank Castle, just beats the shit out of him, kind of.
The guy, yeah.
And then that's that's how they grow to respect him.
Yes, he becomes the defender of the pride kind of thing. Because it ain't gonna be Bumpo.
Well, speaking of Bumpo and Benfo, Bumpo's the goofy fat guy. He's the funny fat guy who makes the food. He could have gone one of 2 ways. He could have been annoying, or he could have been...
He was lovable.
He was very lovable. He was the lovable fat dork. He wasn't... And not like how Chris Farley's the lovable fat dork. He was very downplayed.
Effectively was himself.
And you believed him like when he was too scared to get involved in the confrontations. But you weren't just like, oh, he's just a pussy to be a pussy. You realized he wants to help Rebecca Romaine in this situation, but there's no way he would.
And then Ben Foster, I remember watching, I've been a Ben Foster fan since, was it Even Stevens or whatever the fuck he was on?
I don't know if he was on there. You're thinking of Shia LaBeouf, weren't you?
Yeah, well, Ben Foster was in something for Disney. I don't know. I wasn't a fan. I was just, when I was like a junior in high school, I was trying to shag some freshman, and her sister was watching the show, and I'm like waiting for them to be somewhere. And I end up watching the show. I'm like, well, that kid's pretty good. And it was Ben Foster. And so years later, I was like, the fuck is this guy? He's doing a really good job. I didn't recognize him.
I've seen him.
Because he has all this shit on his face. He has all
these, he's covered in piercings.
And then finally, I'm like, who was that? That was really Ben fucking Foster.
He's good. He's
phenomenal.
One of the X-Men movies. He's good in 30 Days of Night.
Lone Survivor. He was fantastic.
Yes.
In that.
what was it? The remake of The Mechanic, I think he was in with Jason Statham. He was really good in.
Okay.
Really good actor. And what I liked about him is he also plays. He's not the comic relief like Bumpo, but he's this abused, not very confident character. Right. And Frank does a good job bringing the confidence out. Like there's the scene where Frank had just gotten the shit kicked out of him by Kevin Nash, one of the assassins, and they're in hiding. They're hiding in like the secret compartment in Frank's, apartment, and Ben's just sitting there, and I don't know who the actor is. He's John Travolta's like right hand man.
The henchman.
And
that guy's a very good actor. Does a good job in this movie as well. Let me pull that up.
And Ben's
finally me doing this. I'm finally doing it. Will Patton. Will Patton is Quentin Glass.
Okay, that's it.
And he did a really good job.
Yep.
Very good.
And Will Patton. He does a really good job being intimidating as the right hand man. And it's this interrogation scene. And what he's doing is, we mentioned Ben Foster has piercings all over his face.
Yes.
Like in his nose and his eyebrows and in his lip. And we got metal pliers being like applied to his nose and his lip, and he's just slowly yanking them out of his face. But Ben Foster is standing his ground. He doesn't give up Frank Castle, so it's a great performance showing from, he's this intimidated guy, and now he's standing his ground. He doesn't give him up. John Travolta, one of his better performances, because you either get he's like Nicolas Cage. You either get good or you get shit.
And this was good, John.
This was this was not like great, but this was.
Some people are critical of it, but I think any qualms you have in this film, it's going to be like tone. It's going to be perhaps writing. It's not acting, and when people are criticizing a little bit John Travolta, it's not his performance; it's his character. But his performance is that character. I thought he did a fine job.
He did really good. Like it also depends on like the material he's given. Like in Face Off, he's over the top.
Yes,
too much.
Well, there you're supposed to be because it's fucking Face Off. And this was a movie like you were talking about earlier, where you could play this one of two ways. And in some things, they did this weird thing where it's a dark movie and it's the fucking Punisher. It's supposed to be, but then they tried to keep it kind of PG some ways.
Well, it's rated R.
Yeah,
it's rated R.
But I think they tried to keep it so the younger teenagers could come and get some money there. And I think it was a bit of a mistake. But the point is, those qualms are in the writing and in the tone. For John Travolta, I thought he did a fine job with this.
I think he does really good with who he's supposed to be.
He was
this guy that you do this, you do that.
He
killed my character. You believe that he loved his son that was accidentally killed, and when he's handing out these marching orders, he wants Frank Castle dead. It's not I want him dead. This over the top stuff. It's
I want his family dead.
Exactly.
I want his pets dead. I want his plants dead.
Yeah.
It's just. Shoot him.
It's done really well. We'll talk about the massacre scene.
Yeah.
Because it has Roy Scheider from Jaws as
Frank Castle's dad.
And the wonderful Samantha Mathis as his wife.
I mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it again. If you go watch, Christian Slater was
Pump Up the Volume.
Pump Up the Volume. You get to see her boobers. Oh, she's really nice.
She's nice even if you don't see her boobs.
She's got everything.
Broken Arrow, where she's wearing the tight brown pants.
I gotta go watch that again.
Super Mario Brothers.
Yes, how about?
But she's decent. She's she doesn't
have a big role in it.
Right, she's not with Tom Jane that much, but she does have a really good chemistry with them. Yeah. She's maybe in 10 minutes.
And it's smart casting because the first act of this film, they really give you a lot of information quickly and get you on your two. You basically
the pacing's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Here's their family. Here's what he does. Here's everything you gotta know, and then massacre, and you're onto your movie.
And speaking of the massacre,
but when you have just a few minutes to establish that. She comes in along with Roy Schneider and everybody else. They do a really good job because you just got a few minutes, but you do have to care about his family. You got to care about his dad. You got to care about his kids.
Because they had
you got to care about that world.
There is like one brief scene where it's just him and his dad in his dad's office, and he's showing him the guns and stuff like that. And in
just a few minutes that you have with him, you get to feel that connection as a father and son, and it sets up the guns. It's going to come later, but that was the big thing. If you just slaughter the family, no one gives a shit. You don't have a movie. So really good casting with Samantha Mathis, Roy Schneider, and everybody else.
Yeah,
that you care about this family, and you establish that very quickly.
And then when you get to this massacre scene,
yes,
they don't pull a lot of punches because I think the first person killed.
That's where they go dark.
Yeah, I think the first person killed is the mom, not Samantha Mathis, but Tom James' mom.
Tom James' mom.
And then they're just killing. John Travolta's men are killing them left and right. Yeah. They're shooting them.
Good henchmen as well. Good henchmen in this movie.
They're shooting them to death. Scheider gets shot. Samantha Mathis and their young son get run over by a Jeep.
They go really fucking dark.
And then I like how they think they kill Frank Castle. They do. It's kind of cheesy, but they beat the shit out of him, and then they do the whole line of gasoline. They light it on fire, and he gets blown away, and they leave him for dead.
Instead of getting blown up, he gets blown out.
Yep.
Into the water. He doesn't die. And one guy who doesn't get enough props, so we're going to do it here, is the guy who plays both Bobby and John Saint, the twins. There's two twin sons, and James Carpinello. Well, I've never seen him. Carpinello. Never seen him in anything else. But he doesn't get enough credit.
He does good.
He doesn't. He plays two sons, and the one son is more of a jerk. The one son is kind of a nicer guy. You really don't get to see the.
You can tell that when the one that was killed in the beginning, at least the way John Travolta and his wife, played by Laura Herring, you can tell that they favored the dead son a lot more because the one that's still alive, he knows that they won't get over the dead son's death, but if it happened to the other son, they wouldn't care as much.
Eddie Jemison, who plays
Mickey Duca. He's the one that the Punisher is basically
becomes the Punisher's little buddy.
Yeah, because he hates working for Travolta.
He works hating for the Saints, which is John Travolta's family. But
Howard Saint,
Mickey, and the nicer of the two sons were buddies. And once again, two good actors. You get a sense right away that they're actual friends. They go to set up the
great chemistry.
Selling guns. The gun deal goes south. The nicer son gets killed. Then you're stuck with the more douchebaggy son. But one of the things in writing I really liked was that John Travolta favoring like you were saying, favoring the dead. So you can tell. Was a great writing choice,
especially that scene where he's in the morgue with the dead body. You can tell he was very sad. I do like we're talking about Mickey Duca. I won't spoil this because it's kind of a cool reveal, but I like the interrogation scene where
that's where the movie loses and gains. Because it's like, okay, there they go a little too
comic booky,
and then it comes back to your definition of a comic book, and it's
the Punisher was always a grittier comic.
The Punisher was dark as fuck. It's the fucking Punisher. It's not that Johnny Appleseed. It's the fucking Punisher.
I like that scene. As stupid as it is, I like that scene in the reveal. Now I like the scene where he's fighting the Russian. Played by Kevin Nash. It's a good. I like how. I like the way the director Jonathan Hensleigh. He cuts between two scenes. He's cutting between a very fucking brutal fight between Kevin Nash and Tom Jane. Like Kevin Nash is kicking the fucking shit out of him, and then he's cutting into Bumpo, and like Rebecca Romijn-Stamos has had a shit day, and Bumpo and Ben Foster
you think she's had a bad day.
are lip syncing to like an Italian opera, trying to cheer her up, and I love how he's cut in the comedy from there and the violence from the fight with him and the Russian, and it works perfectly. It's not over the top. This comedy is retarded. It's the intense violence, and then you're getting that reprieve with the comedy, and then you're back with the intense violence, and it goes back and forth, and then of course the Punisher gets thrown through the door, and then it stops all the comedy, which is really good. I really like the editing in that.
Yes, it's competently put together film.
My only, and I won't spoil this, My only like major problem is how you know Howard Saint's gonna die. That is how he's taken care of, which I won't spoil. But it's you were talking about how you didn't like the interrogation scene because it's kind of cheesy. This is like this is like head cheese type of cheesy. I don't like the reveal at the end.
3 or 4 decisions in this film where you're just like, and when the interrogation scene, I liked great acting. But it's actually when we just mentioned his name and Ben Foster. Mm-hmm. They sit down. No, the lead henchman.
Oh, Mickey. We'll just call him Mickey.
No, the lead henchman.
Oh.
What's his name? We just fucking.
It doesn't matter. We'll talk. John Travolta's right.
Okay, Will Patton. I'm sorry. Okay. So Will Patton and Ben Foster in that interrogation scene. I thought there was 2 really good actors.
It was really good.
And it was really good performance.
And it was really intense. Yes. And there's very little dialogue.
I just like the way they both played it and played off each other. Mm-hmm. The problem is not that scene. The problem is as they're walking out the door, and he says the most implausible thing. He's like, "If they knew, they would tell us," or something. And it's like, you're not gonna kill him. Everything you've massacred that fucking family for a lot less, with a lot less writing on it, and then like in the film, John Travolta does drug deals with these Cubans, and the Punisher blows up a shit ton of money, and then of the Cubans' money, trying to fuck up John Travolta's world. Yeah. And so it's like, if that happens again, John Travolta, he could get killed by the Cubans, he could lose his business, he's got a lot riding on this, and then the henchmen just kind of wander away. Mm-hmm. And then they have one guy to be like, in case he comes back, you know how he's killed all these people, he's been kicking our ass the whole movie? You, the one guy, stay here. Not all of us. I'm not sending in 20 more guys. No, just the one dude. You see, know how he kicked that Russian guy's ass? And that Russian guy's really big. You, one guy, fix our problems. And it's like, what? Why would you make... So there's like 90% of this, some really good writing, great performances, really competent, and then they make a decision like,
it's what? There, like you said, there's like 3 scenes where that kind of takes you out, and you're just like
2 or 3 things where like the logic, like you have to. But I like what he does to the bad guy's head. Yeah, like I like that. Even there, you saw I like so much about it, but it's just like logically, it's like you just massively contradicted the whole rationale for your being there. Like you wouldn't leave these people alive.
Like, what do you think before he gets to Howard Saint and he's taking out all the henchmen? It's over the top, very over the top.
The ending. So we're spoiling that now?
We're not. No, we're not saying what happens to Howard Saint. We're not talking about what happens to Travolta. I'm talking about when he's taking out all the henchmen in like the office building.
Oh, he's shooting everybody out.
Yeah,
sure.
As over the top as that is, it's very unbelievable. But this is where, as the Punisher does a really good job. When you have Marvel Comics, you got Iron Man, you got Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, all this over the top shit. The Punisher, in the comic and in the film, does a really, really good job trying to keep it based in reality. Mm-hmm. And as great, I love mindless action. Yeah. But we get this feeling about how realistic this is going to be. Once we get to where he's taking out all of Saint's men, it's getting into like 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger territory. Yeah. And as much as I'm having fun and it's just mindless violence and like, wow, Frank Castle is killing all these fucking people. I'm just like, he hasn't been shot once. It's like the end of Commando type of thing. But without the bad puns. And I'm like, as great it is, I'm just like, it's a little bit not as realistic as this is trying to keep you based in reality.
And that's exactly, it's a great point, because you got one foot in a fairly dark, realistic film, and then one foot into just too far. Mm-hmm. But I'm the kind of guy where I see exactly where you're going, but I'm that asshole. Mm-hmm. You know me. And I'm the kind of guy where, like, in Commando, he runs out into the open and he's just mowing people down. Mm-hmm. Here, it's like, he's holding his rifle right, he's got good finger discipline, he's got his sectors covered. I'm the guy who's like, if it doesn't make sense tactically, it kills my heart out. Mm-hmm. So when you see those like 80s movies and they're holding the M16 way out here, it's like you have no control over your where your rifle, your barrel is. Mm-hmm. Shit like that. So here, it was unrealistic, and then he's going to take out all those guys, but tactically how he did it was realistic. And if you looked up, if you hold your rifle right and you move right and all that kind of stuff, I was like, okay, I'm okay with it.
Okay. So in closing, Punisher, yay or nay?
We have to cover out the very ending, though. We have to discuss it.
Now, wait. Are we talking the Howard St. John Travolta ending or like the ending?
The very John Travolta ending. How John Travolta goes out.
Well, I'm going to count down to 5. If you haven't seen this movie from
I'm going to count you down to 5, big boy. And then you're going to come all over. Oh, I'm sorry.
Pretend you did not see that. I'm going to count down to 5. If you haven't seen this movie that's over 10 years old, we're going to spoil how Howard St. is killed.
Spoilers.
That's a fast count. Go ahead.
Okay, so
he's tied before he takes out Howard St. Frank Castle has put.
I don't mind how he took him out. They did a little.
He put a bunch of bombs.
Well, no, step right before that. They have the whole draw and shoot. Mm-hmm. That part's fine.
That part's fine.
There. And everything prior to that, I'm cool with that. Mm-hmm. And then
it's before he went out to take out all of Howard Saint's men.
He's not dead, but he's wounded. He's down. He's not getting back
before
up.
He did that, Frank Castle had put a bunch of bombs, sporadically out in this part.
Anti-personnel mines and whatnot.
Yeah. See that he's here for the technical stuff. He put all these bombs, as I'm going to say, sporadically, placed in this parking lot with these cars. And he eventually drags Howard St. through all these explosions. Howard St. catches on fire. Yeah. And all these bombs are going off. And it looks really, really, really good. Mm-hmm. Until... Now remember earlier in this... when I was,
and I'm with it up until this point.
Remember earlier when I was saying how Jonathan Heinsley did a really good job with the editing between the violence of him finding Kevin Nash and Bumpo, being Bumpo. We get this overhead shot...
Oh no!
Of all the cars on fire, and it's the fucking Punisher skull.
The skull.
It's like, you got that hard on.
Yes.
You got that hard on. You're with Rebecca Romijn.
You're burning John Travolta to death.
Here's what it is. Whitey's got this hard on, okay? Yeah. And he's with Rebecca Romijn-Stamos. Is she Rebecca Romijn? Hold on. She's still Rebecca Romijn-Stamos. Pretend she's single. She just left John Stamos. You're with her, and you're going good. She's not in the Mystique makeup, so she looks all normal. And then you see... No,
that's when you notice the Adam's apple. Here's
the thing. You're going good. And then, what happens? And it's like this action scene, and then you see that overhead shot of the skull, and you look up, and she turns into Bumpo.
No!
She turns into Bumpo, and you're just like...
Bumpo's a good-looking guy.
You're just like...
If I was gay, I'd like Bumpo.
You would. But my point is, you just got this huge, great, over-the-top action sequence, him killing all of Howard Saint's men. We will not spoil how he kills the other twin, because I thought that was really cool.
Okay.
And then, the old Western, shoot-off you thought was cool, which was cool. And it just ruins it with that overhead shot of the cars on fire in the skull. And I'm just like... God damn it!
Yeah, and there was literally the first time I saw it, I was like,
and then the second time you saw it,
point, my boner was like, It just like, no, why? Yeah. So it's like there's just like some people really don't like this. I think 95% of this film I enjoy. Mm-hmm. I like the writing, I like the tone, the performances, the acting, shot fine.
Who knew you would like John Panetti?
Yeah,
he's very likable.
Stand up, I like the guy, but. It's just those 3 or 4 decisions, and that being the worst.
And the problem is those decisions are at the wrong part of the movie.
They kill exactly. It's like the big huge fucking thing. It's like some Silence of the Lambs or shit, some shit, and then the guy's like something about fava beans, and then some clown walks by with a strap on his head. It's just like a tone. Fuck! It's like a tone killer. It's like no. Yeah. And they bring up the music into some concerto, or not, crescendo. And they're like, yeah, and you're like, oh, God. And then, take those 3 or 4 bad decisions out of there.
in the
And
end,
you got yourself a good movie.
in the end, it sounds like you are too.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Highly, highly recommend.
Oh, absolutely.
2004's The Punisher. Mm-hmm. There are 3 versions of The Punisher. Not this. There's one with Dolph Lundgren. There's this
it's
one
right there, isn't it?
No, I don't. I have that upstairs.
Oh, fuck.
I'm gonna make you watch that one.
I've seen parts of. Oh man,
We have this one. We have Punisher Warzone.
We're gonna need like fucking some Little Caesars or some shit for that viewing. I'm gonna need some kind of something else to sit through that fucking. Oh my god.
Yeah. In the end, though,
Yeah.
highly recommend.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
2004's The
Yes.
Punisher with Thomas Jane and.
Is there anybody else we got to give a quick shout out to? I think we covered everybody.
Probably not.
You know, all the various henchmen did a good job.
Yeah, and there's some other side stories involving, how Frank Castle's, doing things, not like fucking, but doing things to John Travolta's wife to ruin her life and this and that. And it's a really good sequence.
And, the fact that John
Very
Travolta,
slow and
he
methodical.
gets John Travolta to fuck up his own life.
Yeah, we'll leave
He
it
doesn't
at that.
do it to him. Or, Thomas Jane doesn't do it. He makes Travolta fuck up.
Exactly. So it shows that Thomas Jane, or Frank Castle, is a very, very smart man as well. Very patient as well. So I've said it 4 or 5 times.
Right.
In the end, highly recommend The Punisher.
Definitely.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, click the
That
bell.
was a half hour. You're not getting back.
I know.
You're not getting that back.
I didn't think we would. Who knew we would talk for
Half
30
hour.
minutes on the
Having
Punisher?
already reviewed it on another channel.
Yeah. Speaking of, like I said, like, subscribe, share. Don't care. Click the bell. Check out the Whitey the White Guy show. That's where I started. Lots of movie reviews there.
I took his YouTube cherry, America.
He did.
Yeah.
Long time ago, and I haven't forgiven him since.
Yeah, it's
lots of goofy shit on there.
that grudge.
He's got a political channel that I won't get into. All I'm going to say is it's not safe for work, and you might hate him afterwards. Cheers and Samantha Mathis.
Samantha Mathis.